I was on the phone with these guys for like 30 minutes until I realized, okay, they want money and they were good. I can't explain.
It's just a matter of back to the cat and mouse game. They'll find the next big thing where people think they need to send money and blast it out, right? And some people will fall for it, unfortunately.
Today we have Chris Camacho. He's the co-founder and COO of Abstract Security, a cybersecurity company helping security teams modernize how they detect threats and manage data in real time.
They're sophisticated. If they're targeting you or the company, they're not sending like the B team or C team. They're sending the A team and they have a playbook.
Tell us more about your backstory.
Getting into cybersecurity is something I stumbled upon. I was a decision management information system graduate from George Mason University here in Northern Virginia. And I actually went straight into finance. I was doing day trading in the internet craze back in the day.
Now, you've started a company and had an acquisition. Tell us more about that one.
Yeah, that was an exciting one for me because I feel like I really helped the cybersecurity community at the right time, right place. At the end of the day, everyone in a vendor, everyone at these startups is in sales.
Fill in the blank for me. A leader under pressure should always. Welcome back to Growth Under Pressure, sponsored by Adapt CFO. I'm your host, Eric Josovitz, and today we have Chris Camacho. He is the co-founder and COO of Abstract Security, a cybersecurity company helping security teams modernize how they detect threats and manage data in real time. Chris is also an entrepreneur and investor, loves F1, and he's just fun and all around great guy, living in North Virginia with his wife and 2 kids. Chris, great to have you here.
Eric, thanks for having me. Excited to be on your podcast.
Awesome. Tell us more about your backstory, how you got into cybersecurity and operations.
Yeah, to be honest, getting into cybersecurity is something I stumbled upon. I was a decision management information system graduate from George Mason University here in Northern Virginia. And I actually went straight into finance. I was doing day trading in the internet craze back in the day. And I was doing really well. I decided to get out before the bubble burst. So thankfully I was one of those that just got out at the right time, right place, and took a little bit of hiatus. Then I was like, well, let me use my degree for something. I started applying for jobs, and lo and behold, I landed an amazing job supporting Citibank in doing information security things. So luckily for me, I landed with the right person who I'm actually still friends with till this day, that taught me the basics and everything of an introduction to cybersecurity way back in my career. From there, just kind of migrated into different financial services companies before I decided to join the vendor side.
That's awesome. You know, they say that day trading you can never make money on. Did you kind of see the writings on the wall and got out? What was your exit strategy?
The exit strategy was the stress. So there were days that we were making a nice amount of money. I was doing it with a friend. And then there were days that we were losing a significant amount of money. But we were seeing at those times some stocks that were just so volatile. I mean, it happens now, but not as volatile as they were back then. And one of those days that we made a lot of money, I was just like, I'd rather leave on a high and take my winnings that I had and just call it a day. My friend kept going. My friend ended up losing all of it in, again, the .com boom. And I just happened to get out at the right time, right place. I took that money and bought myself a house, which was probably the smartest thing to do because I was still really, really young. It was just a nice foundation for how to get started in finances early on.
That's awesome. So you kind of, pushed the losses aside, took your money, ran with it, and then started in the IT space and grew a strong career in cybersecurity. Now you've gone through some exits. You've started in the early days at startups. At Abstract, what are you guys doing? What got you to start the company to begin with?
Yeah, so my co-founder and CEO had approached me about maybe it's time to think of our own startup. And I said, hey, I have a lot of ideas. He had a lot of ideas. Timing just started aligning at the right place, right time. I was living and breathing cyber threat intelligence is what I was doing at Flashpoint. and just noticing that many companies and people just started to ask this question. So what? You're sending me a lot of amazing information. This data is hard to get, but how do we operationalize it? How do we make it actionable? So that got me thinking, how can I help these organizations take this type of data and operationalize it? My co-founder was big in the SIM space. So where all your data comes into a system, a platform. And so we kind of came up with the idea of, let's build what we call now a composable next-gen AI-enabled SIM. So it's been amazing. Take what I've learned in the past as a practitioner and my days at Flashpoint, and I'll apply it to Abstract.
That's a mouthful. Tell me more about that SIM and what it does.
Yeah, so we basically take all of the data sources a company may have on a given day, right? So think of the computer logs, whether it's Windows or Macs. If you're talking to a large enterprise, you're probably familiar with companies like CrowdStrike or SentinelOne. They protect the endpoint from any harm from hackers, essentially. On the network layer, you probably have some Palo Alto, Zscaler, right? And then on the cloud, which everyone's using cloud, some Amazon or Azure logs, right? So Microsoft or Amazon logs, AWS.
Mm-hmm.
We basically bring all that data into our system, attach what we call detection rules. So rules either that our team is writing or integrations that they have to commercial providers. And in addition to them being able to work and operate on the data, we can detect threats inline, in stream. That's what makes us different in a very competitive market.
And you're also using AI to detect these threats versus, the human element, which may take longer.
Correct. So it's both the technology is able to process things we call it shift left, right? Before a human or the system at the end of the day can see it. And then, yes, there's a lot of AI and a lot of agents now that are being deployed in order to help do as much of the heavy lifting or the manual work so that our customers, or what we call the security operations centers, don't necessarily have to do it. And obviously, that's where everybody's headed towards, how to leverage AI in order to be a force multiplier.
That's great. In our world, that's what we'd call a preventative control. The detective control is, I know it's something that you guys also do. Is there a tool, is there a process that you guys lean on for, hey, because nothing's promised, right? Like stuff still comes in, attacks, what's the detective control?
Yeah. So first, what we work on closely with any customer that we work with is a data strategy. So one of the issues that a lot of companies have is they'd like to send as much data to a system, a traditional SIM, as we would call it, right? And it just becomes a glob, a huge just data warehouse. And they're not applying a strategy of like, what am I sending there? How much is it costing me? And should it be prioritized? So we start with the strategy, because this is, without the foundation, you're not going to be able to do any detective work, right?
Right.
And then so from there, once we establish the data strategy, then we start pushing the customers to say, hey, have you thought about bringing on your SaaS based applications? So think Salesforce, Workday, and those types of the technologies that for some reason a lot of enterprises just haven't thought about how to bring that into their SIM, and they're doing triage or detective work on those systems themselves. But if we figured out how to bring those technologies into our platform, and then from there, it's helping them write what it's called detection rules, actually, right? So
Mm-hmm.
detective work. How am I going to hunt, or how am I going to use all this data in order to find what we call the needle in the needle of haystacks, essentially?
That's got to be tough.
It is tough. It is tough. I definitely got into a challenging technology and space.
I know it. Is there end-to-end encryption? The typical consumer like me that's not deep into cybersecurity, we hear all these buzzwords like end-to-end encryption, and we briefly talked about quantum, which I know is not even here yet, but like, does encryption also play a role in what you guys do?
There has to be encryption. There has to be a lot of security. So as a security company, the last thing that we ever want to happen to us, I'm not just talking about Abstract, but any of us, is to be breached, is to have some sort of mistrust to the customers, mistrust to the industry, or have a security incident as a security company. Now, attackers go after security vendors all day, right? So we have to do our best to maintain encryption, to maintain what's called SOC 2 compliance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our teams are trained on security, and then have a very comprehensive incident response plan. Should an event happen, we're responding right away. So we invest heavily in security. We buy technology that protects our networks. Core and foundation of our company, it is very important to us. And this was actually the case at this company and my last company. Security, encryption, and everything that comes with it has to be prioritized at the highest levels.
Yeah, and it sounds like you have to work those muscles, if like I use a sports analogy, it's like we're leveling up every single year, and the same thing in the security world. The threats are becoming more vicious, more dangerous, stronger. And I feel like, and this is just my perspective, please keep me humble here, but that, on your side, the security side, you have to continue to work that muscle, use, stronger software, stronger encryption. Is that safe to say?
Very safe to say. I honestly think this is why security is becoming more of a board level initiative. Like the largest companies, they're starting to add the chief information security officers to boards, because hackers, it's a cat and mouse game. Security spends more money on technology and people, and the attackers just start to pivot or try new things or try to work the way around technologies to the human side of things, right? And now with AI, it's actually made it significantly easier on both sides, but mostly to the attackers, because they're leveraging it like crazy and trying to think
Mhm.
of new and innovative ways into companies. And the most interesting thing here is, if I'm at a company that invests heavily in security and incident response and the human side, and my attacker wants to get into my network, they'll start going around my company to my partners, right? To family
Mhm.
of someone that works at the company, right? To try and get information, anything that they can get, again, leveraging AI and leveraging the humans and leveraging everything that you can think of in order to social engineer the way into the environment that they want to attack. So it is a cat and mouse game. We're always going to have employment in cybersecurity, especially on the human side, because as security evolves, the attackers evolve. It's always going to be evolving. And as you said, once quantum computing comes along, it's going to be a whole different game, right?
Yeah. That's so interesting because a lot of us think, well, we don't need to use an end-to-end solution, as consumers, but having those connection points to, security company or the data that they're trying to get to, and a workaround, or, a kid ends up clicking on something. It's like, it sounds like the strategy really needs to go down the tree across the board. And sounds like we need more consumer tools and more education to keep us up to date on those.
Yeah, I think starting from I have a my son Lucas is a freshman in high school, and he literally texted me 2 days ago saying, "Hey Dad, should I take AP cybersecurity?" I was pleasantly surprised to hear that they offer cybersecurity that early, right? Because
Yeah.
you start training these kids much earlier, because they're just so used to technology and everything's so easy these days, as you know, right? On the consumer front, right? And because it's made everything so easy, sometimes we have to educate them to think twice before you're just double clicking something or accepting an invite or opening an attachment or taking a
Yep.
phone. That sounds like me, honestly, right? With the deep fakes that are happening, you just have to get them thinking in their heads about cybersecurity. So when they're off to college, they're thinking about it. And obviously in the workforce, whether they're in the field or working for enterprise, that they know what the possibilities are of what attackers are out there trying to get to their computer, their information in their head, or something in and around their personal or work life.
Right. And leaning on emotions, it's so
Yeah.
easy. And I'll use an example that I recently experienced. I've been head of finance for, I don't know, over 10 years, maybe 10 years. And I know what the threats look like. Emails come in from a CEO that's asking to send money, but it's not really the CEO. It's a different email when you tap into it. And that's just one of many threats that I've seen. But I recently got a call from a police lieutenant or sheriff, whoever it was, telling me that I missed jury duty and then they needed to go to the courthouse. And I did. It's really ironic because I got a notice for jury duty and somehow I missed it.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
I don't know what happened. It didn't get on my calendar. I put it on the wrong date. I missed it. But then when I looked back, I was okay. Like somehow I survived. Now of course, I have jury duty next week, which is exciting. Somehow over the last 2 years, I've had more and more. But the point is, even someone like me that's super knowledgeable on threats, and I teach my team all the time, I was like, I was on the phone with these guys for like 30 minutes until I realized, okay, they want money and they were good. I can't
They're,
explain.
they're sophisticated. If they're targeting you or the company, they're not sending like the B team or C team. They're sending the A team, and they have a playbook, and they are.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right.
they were professionals. I was like on the phone talking through. He sounded like an officer saying all the right things. He said, I need to go in person. So that to me was like, okay. But then when they started talking about, like getting a money order, I was like, no,
The
I'm not.
money order, Western Union, or gift cards that give it away, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, those are usually the three, but even over here, so those are called business email compromise, right? BEC scams. Even over here, and even at my last job, and even when I talk to my peers in just cybersecurity startups, like we hire someone that starts on a Monday, right? And I think within the hour, they're getting a text or an email from perceived to be from myself or Colby, my CEO, saying, "Hey, I need you to get on a quick call. Something emergency has come up," right? And because they haven't gone through training yet, they don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes they call back, or sometimes they respond in text, right? And then luckily we have like as soon as someone joins, we're immediately educating them. Hey, watch out for this, right? And it's 9 times out of 10 the text or the emails go out. They alert us, and then we provide mitigating controls where we can. But some people never see the educational component, or are so anxious to talk to the CEO or the co-founder or whoever that they start
Yeah.
engaging. And then there are I've seen or heard stories of people will send the gift card out because they thought the CEO in a brand new job asked them to do them a favor, right? Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, but this is just a small example. I've also witnessed, coming from a financial background, where, as you said, it goes to accounts payable.
Mm-hmm.
Now looks legit. They're asking to switch the bank because we just moved from this bank to this other bank, and the wire then hit or something didn't hit. Please send the 30,000 or more to this account. And because everything looks good and it's routine, right? Because they're monitoring email, maybe I don't know. They send the
Mm-hmm.
money, right? And then from there, everyone's just instant
Yeah.
response. Everyone's just
Yeah.
hustling to get the money back, claw it back where they can. They lose so fast.
Yeah, I've seen a handful of things like that, and even from an employee standpoint, some workarounds. But we have some controls, like which I know as well, is like pick up the phone if it's a new account. Pick up the phone, call the bank, call the vendor directly, not from the number you got. Anytime someone's like calls you and is asking you personal information, hang up the phone. If it's American Express, right? Go call American Express from a number that you find within your system and verify the bank account, or in most of the time.
That is the best defense. If
Yeah.
there's something that seems urgent and you're getting a call and they're saying all the right things, or even sound like the person you normally talk to, say, "Hey, I will call you back at their corporate number and
Yeah.
see if it validates, it checks." A lot of
Yeah.
times, well,
I did call the courthouse after I talked to those people, and they're like, "We don't make phone calls." And I was like, "Okay, I just want to make sure." She was like, "Sir, we don't call you. We only send mail." Is wild. Of course, you hear stories of like you missed jury dude, you're gonna get arrested.
I don't know if you're
Um,
following the news, but there was this big Easy Pass scam like a year
yes.
ago. You remember that?
Yep.
Similar to, and then I think they said, "Hey, we don't ask for money in this way," and everyone's just sending money left and right because the threats were like, "You bypass this toll or all this other
Yep.
stuff, right?" And to refill.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's just a matter of back to the cat and mouse game. They'll find the next big thing where people think they need to send money and blast it out, right? And some people will
Yeah.
fall for it, unfortunately, and obviously some will be more clever, but
It's
that's
wild.
it's back and forth.
It is wild. Now, you've started a company and had an acquisition. Tell us more about that one.
Yeah, that was an exciting one for me because I feel like I really helped the cybersecurity community at the right time, right place. So I started a company with a couple co-founders called Ninja Jobs. And at the time, we started as a job platform. So at the time, think Monster, CareerBuilder.com,
Hmm.
Indeed wasn't there, and they were mass job platforms for all jobs. What we wanted to do was build industry's first job platform dedicated to cybersecurity, and it hit. But where we wanted to differ from the career builders and such was the jobs that got posted had to be vetted. So meaning if I knew the hiring manager at an Amazon or a Bank of America or a Target or, any company, that person would say, "Hey, I have 4 jobs to fill," and they would post it on this job board, and they would go out to then trusted people that really were qualified for the role, and it just was like a nice matching system. Many jobs were had from that platform. Many jobs got filled, and then people's career got elevated, which was amazing. Then we decided, hey, this job platform has so much rich data. Why don't we start like bringing on the recruiting side of that? So we added recruiters, so the humans, and then they took that and added from the job platform a straight recruiting company too. So that was a great run. I enjoyed doing that. I met a lot of great people that I still talk to this day. I go randomly to a conference and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got my job through Ninja Jobs, right? The automated platforms." And I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome. That happens so much." And I love to hear those stories. Uh, and then we ultimately took that and sold it to a private equity. So that's off doing private equity things on its own now. And, I'm glad I had that journey because it just really expanded my network and I got to meet a lot of cool people that like I said, now have great jobs at all these companies that will hit me up and say, "Hey, thanks to you, I got this job." I go, "Oh, that's awesome. Thank you."
That's great when you can have a startup that's really mission driven and providing jobs for people or doing something that's going to provide good back into the world.
Exactly. Yeah. I was really proud of this one. It's something that the industry needed at the right time, right place. It probably still needs something like that, but there's others now in the mix. And Ninja Jobs still exists today. So that's great.
Okay, great. Yeah, there's a ton of platforms that are recruiting or connecting communities together. I'm actually working on one that's more in the sports world for former athletes. Think of a LinkedIn for former athletes. It's called Former. And we actually had the founder and CEO on our podcast, Rennie Curran. He's an ex NFL player. And those are the types of things that I definitely lean towards. It's the ones that they're like, look, I'm trying to help these people. They have a short career or they shift to a different role and they don't have anyone there. They don't know what to do, but they are smart, they're driven, they've been a leader, on the field and off the field. I mean, quickly talking about being a leader, tell us more about what shaped the way you lead early on.
I
Was
You just had me thinking, just to
Yeah,
add more to this journey on the Ninja Job side. So one
yeah.
thing that you brought back a memory. So one thing, so the company was a lifestyle company for me at the time. I was at Flashpoint, so I was really dedicated to Flashpoint, and it was keeping me really busy. So that's why
Hmm.
we hired recruiters to run the day to day. An idea that we explored heavily was building the LinkedIn for cybersecurity, right? A dedicated social media platform for cyber because we had the network and the people in there looking for jobs, right? What we determined is unless me probably, resigned from Flashpoint and dedicated myself to Ninja Jobs, which I wasn't ready to do, it was not worth building a whole social media platform because that would require time, effort, and money in order to do it correctly,
Yep.
right? The other angle there was it's kind of interesting that you brought up the sports analogy because what we also tried to do was if I knew a good friend that was discreetly looking at, I'll pick on Amazon again, but at Amazon, right? And he approached me, "Hey, Chris, I'm on the market. I don't want anybody to know, but I want to get max dollar and the best possible job." I always said that the industry needed someone like what athletes have, an agent, right? And we
Hmm.
talked about that a little bit, an agent that could represent this guy from behind the scenes and say, "Hey, this person, name a random company, now Claude, right? Or Perplex, right?
Sure, sure.
You should hire this person. This is what they do. They've been there forever. They're discreetly looking, and this would change your program and something transformational. And then let them negotiate the salary and everything, right? So that model would represent the person. So back to your sports analogy, that's what got my attention. We try to build it, but it's one of the things that maybe down the road I'll revisit once abstract, whatever happens there, because I always
Yeah.
was fascinated with that type of model. I think our industry needs it.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I want to bring that over to that startup because it's like if you are to have like micro sports agents, it's like, it could kind of be a play on words with AI agents.
Yeah, like
They're
AI.
actually they're actually agents that are connecting you to those companies. But I think a lot of, the goal of the platform is to connect you with other athletes and corporations and athletes within those corporations that are leaders that can end up driving value to that world.
Yes, yes. So my
Now,
question, remind me, what was the?
yeah, yeah, was there a person, lesson, or experience that still shows up in how you operate today based, 'cause just given that you've been leading in cybersecurity for many years.
Yeah. So I think a character trait that I have that many people call me out for is I grew up in humble beginnings. My parents immigrated from Peru. What came when I was 5. We had nothing, like literally nothing when we came to this country other than my family. My family helped my mom and dad, find them some housing, give us some
Mhm.
clothes. We came in the middle of a snowstorm and we were not prepared for that, right? And
Yeah.
so my parents, I just saw them working night and day, like the night shift, whatever it took just to get by. And then they found their way, they found their path. They actually also entrepreneur. They bought their own. They actually bought a gas station and a service center, which is where my passion for cars started because they
Wow.
just and that's where they were working. And what I always was very humble. Um, Humble with the people that my parents were working with, my family. Not everyone's well off, right? The employees at a gas station, right? And then even today, to this day, when I go to restaurants, I really like invest time with the waiters and the kitchen and the bus boys. And it's just I've always had this like I want to connect with everyone. Not I would treat them like if they were the CEO of the company to whatever they do on a day-to-day job. So my leadership skills are always like treating everyone with a lot of respect, right? Like, hey, you're here for a reason, right?
Mhm.
Hired you for a reason. We've selected you. Now, what can I do to help you perform to the best of your abilities? What can I do to help you advance in your career, whether here or at your next job? Because I've trusted you if you're working with us, right? I really want to work with you. And I want you to use like my trust to help us, right? So my leadership skills are really like to set a mission, to educate them, to invest in them, and to let them be free to hopefully be innovative, creative, and hardworking that delivers back to whatever company I'm working at.
That's such a strong
I
aspect.
need the need to be honestly. I want them to be better. It makes me better with having all these people around me that can educate me and help the company at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the most selfless leadership skill, and honestly, the most effective that I've seen work than just delegating and saying, "Hey, figure it out." It's like, "Hey, let's go down to their level and equip them with the ability to be successful." Not just, "Hey, you should know the role. We hired you as a marketing manager. I'm going to lean on you to be a manager." It's like, "Well, if you have leadership skills inside of you, you need to equip them with more leadership skills."
Correct.
Because we're always learning, and I think that's something that I bring to everything that I do. It's, hey, I should be learning every day, every week, always trying to learn, and that's how you grow in your career.
That's how you grow in your career, right? And if we as leaders aren't challenging our employees to be the best they can, right? And to be honest, I'm also the type like if you're not delivering and if you are goofing off, slacking off, or doing something you shouldn't be, then you should be working for us. And it's okay. It didn't work out, and we'll find somebody else, right? But I really try to invest our time on the preliminary, so we hire the right folks, right? And then invest in those folks so that we can get the return on investment. They can grow with us and we become partners within the org. So it's best for the company.
So are you a macro manager and you equip them from the beginning, you set the deliverables, and you kind of take a step back, or are you still kind of in the day to day with them as well?
I prefer to be a macro manager. That was much, much easier at big companies. It's harder in a startup because I have to be in the day to day, right? And my
Mhm.
co-founder just have to live in the day to day, probably not on purpose, just by design. It is, there's just so many moving parts as we're all trying to grow, the business trying to find revenue, we're trying to deliver amazing products to the customers, right? We have to be everywhere at the same time, right? Everyone needs some input and answers to questions because It might be a directional movement for the company, if it's for a
Right.
conference, if it's for a logo, if it's for a pamphlet, if it's for a customer or even a prospect. So as much as I want to be a macro, and I am to a certain extent, there is still time that I have to be in the weeds, discussing things with the team in multiple meetings and just trying to manage that, both of those at the same time at a startup.
It sounds like the method is you need to hold people accountable. And when you're moving fast, if you are not holding them accountable, you may forget, lose track. It sounds like it's mostly really tight deadlines. It reminds me of like what's the development, like Project Scrum kind of fast track to meet a deadline. And it sounds like you have to be in it because you want to deliver great results and you want to ensure that the employees are pushing to the next level.
That is accurate. Yeah. So we need to be delivering, right? And we need to be
Yeah.
pushing our employees. And as much as I don't want to be a micromanager, and I don't think anybody would tag me as a micromanager, I am in the weeds. I am in the mix. I am in the meetings, right? But at the same time, what I respect about people that I work with, is just do what do what you say you're gonna do, right? And if you
Yeah.
can't deliver by a certain time, to be honest, that's okay. But give me everything and anything you've done to try to make the deadline or the timeline. And if for whatever reason you hit a stumbling block, how can I help you unblock it? Right. And if you don't come to me sooner with how we can help you unblock so you can meet your goals, right? Or we can even give you the week extension, right? It's just about communication with me, communication and do what you say you're going to do.
Chris, I had an experience recently, and I try to pride myself on being this macro manager where I give people freedom. But I had an experience recently. Unfortunately, the employee lasted 2 months, and I tried many, many times to keep him on track. Very creative guy. He scored off the charts. I've never seen an IQ test as high as his. And I actually had him redo it a second time because like his camera was off, and he was like, "Oh yeah, because I kind of didn't believe it, and the camera was off." So he redid it with the camera on and scored even better than he did before. And really smart guy, but all over the place. And sometimes he wouldn't respond in the middle of the day, and I gave him a little bit of slack, but at the end of the day, kind of enough was enough. Like it was obvious that he was maybe doing some work on the side. He
There's something
was
going on. Yeah.
Yeah, he was creating, like I would tell him to do one thing, he would do something else. And after just trying to equip him with leadership, and I gave him a lot of responsibility from the beginning, it just didn't work out. And looking back, hindsight's 2020, but looking back, I probably should have been a little bit more micromanaging him, if that's the term we'll use from the beginning.
Yeah, and again, not everyone is gonna be the outcome of what you expected from an interview. Hopefully, the majority are, right? But not everyone is what you would expect. And
Yeah.
yes, I have invested more on some employees that weren't meeting the expectations without putting them on a PIP yet, right? Then, if that
Mhm.
didn't work, then you put them in the whole performance plan and all that, and you start that journey, right? Because one thing that I'm unfortunately not afraid to do is if you're wasting our time or if it's not meant to be, then I'd rather cut my losses short than invest a lot of my personal time, which
Yeah.
actually, doesn't benefit the company or the other team members that are working hard, right? So I'd rather make those moves sooner than later.
Yeah, I had to. It was a PIP. You don't get that in the first 30 to 60 days. And it was kind of the opposite of what our parents taught us, where you get in before anyone else and you leave after the boss, right? It's first in, last out. And from the beginning, it's like you start seeing those writings on the wall. The person is obviously taking advantage of the company. And I think we get that a lot in our world. But yeah, it's the good and the bad of being a manager, leading a team. What does the good and the bad look like for you as a leader, from a actual inside of what you're doing on a day to day?
Startups like us are measured on a couple things. Can you deliver a solid product that can be purchased? So, and then can you keep your current customers, right?
Right.
So that's how we're measured. And we have delivered an amazing product and we are actively selling it. So check those two boxes. But that's essentially what any startup wants to do, has to do, right? It starts with building the right team at the leadership level and then at the company level, right? I can trust my teammates, I can trust my leaders, I can trust my co-founders, right? Then we invest in our product and our platform. So we are confident that we have the best product that we can, right? Which gives us the confidence then to go sell it to the market, right? And put our word, our stamp that this product is going to deliver a solid, capability solution for your company. Buy it, try it, of course, but that is the name of the game in the vendor world. It's deliver a solid product that gets purchased, and then grow your ARR, right? Because that's how we're all measured, what your annual recurring revenue is.
For sure. And is that the bad? Is that the, the ugly behind the scenes, just grinding your teeth to get more revenue and more clients?
At the end of the day, everyone in a vendor, everyone at these startups is in sales. And it's interesting because I have a lot of friends that are still like in enterprises that are intrigued or thinking about jumping into this to the vendor world. And the
Hmm.
first thing I tell them is, hey, do you like selling? A lot of them say no. A lot of them just want to be heads down working on other difficult problems. That's great. Because if you don't like selling, there really isn't a job on the vendor side that doesn't have a selling component to it, right?
Yeah.
If the company's not selling the solution, you're not going to get your bonus, and you're not going to achieve other things, and your equity isn't going to be worth as much as you think it is, right? So if you don't have that itch, or if you don't even have a little bit of salesy person inside you, I recommend don't go to the vendor side. Stay where you are. There's plenty of jobs on the enterprise side. Buy my stuff better, right?
Right.
And rather do that. But yeah, that's the challenge on the vendor side. Everyone's in sales.
Yeah, I've learned the hard way. I started Adapt CFO about 8 years ago, and I started in accounting, started leading finance, and then I started Adapt CFO, and I'm selling every week. Every week, every conversation is sales, and I've learned. I did try the script where I was more following a certain methodology. I think for me, my personality is more relationship building, and I do love that side of it, but it can get ugly. You can
It can get
deals
ugly.
can. Yeah.
And what I try to educate people, even when I was on my last two financial jobs, I was like, hey, we are all getting paid, and we are all here because we're actually selling something, right?
Yeah.
We're either selling credit cards, or we're selling large loans, or, investment banking. But if we're not able to sell those things, we're not getting paid. So we have to support the business mission by keeping things secure, reducing fraud, right? At the end of the day, though,
Yeah.
we're here employed, even though I may not be personally tied to the sales numbers and such. We all are, because that's how we get our bonuses and such, right? The success of the company is all led by sales.
It all trickles down even to the employee that's just doing some basic work because they may not know it. And there's some there's like the great game of business, which is a methodology for enlightening employees on the profits. It's more transparent, right? And them sharing in the profits, whether it's profit share or equity share. But there are some methodologies like that, and profits first, I think, is another one that educate the employee, because the reality is most of them think that there's a lot more money in the business, and most of the time it's not true. But they also, when they see the visibility into the profits, they want to do more, which for us, that's more in leadership roles, management, executive. You have visibility into the profits, and that's what pushes the organization forward. But if you're just a worker and you just come in, you get your work done, and you have no ties to equity, you may not be having that sales mentality. But in order to get a promotion, the company has to grow.
Yeah, the company has to grow. Exactly right. That's what I always try to tell. Uh, Again, working on the enterprise and the buy or sell side, the company has to grow.
Yeah. Tell us about a time in your career when you were really under pressure. This is the something we ask all of our guests: when you're not sure how things were going to turn out, when it was dark, gloomy, you were scared. What did that look like?
It happens at each job, to be honest, and it's usually tied to not performance, but just economic conditions. I think is what drives a little bit of the pressure that then starts impacting me and then the team. So even when I was on the buy side, right? If the markets are down, if recession happens, everything gets tightened up, and then that stress gets carried across where we may not be able to hire the people that we were going to hire, right? Or I'm not able to give the raises that people were expecting, or I'm not able to buy the tools that I had budgeted for because of that, right? That pressure trickles down. I push it to the team. and then you have to manage it. Now, you come out of that. On this side, it's pretty similar, right? When COVID happened, for example, nobody knew what was going to happen, right? In hindsight, it actually was one of the best things that could happen to many SaaS based companies, right?
Yeah.
But no what to expect, right? And those early times were super stressful. Like, how are we going to sell? We're used to like seeing all these people in person. We're used to like showing them our products, shaking hands, right? We're used to all coming to the office and working and sharing mindset and meeting together and how we're going to deliver for this certain customer or this prospect or improve the product. How are we going to get around that? So those times were really hard. But again, you come out of it, it made us better, in my opinion. It was just right time, right place, right solution. That made a lot of companies very rich in the SaaS world, right? And we
Yeah.
were able to come off of it because we bonded, we collaborated, and then we delivered an amazing solution. And in here too, even in these times of what's happening in and around us geopolitically, it's uncertain, right? Everyone's worried about the markets, about oil prices. Should we invest in these technologies? A lot of startups are hearing the same thing. We're not buying anything net new unless you can replace something or you can reduce my current spend. That makes it more challenging,
Mhm.
right? But I appreciate the challenge and I'll take the stress. Yeah, I always do and adapt and then, figure out how to maneuver around it and come out on the other side better than ever.
Yeah, you gotta have a really unique sales strategy, and you gotta play on those emotions, right?
Yeah,
Like, hey, we're gonna
very
be
fair.
able to we're gonna be able to save you this. This is gonna relieve more stress on your side. Um, but for you, do you have a like just personally, do you have a methodology to navigate those waters to get through those stressful days?
Yeah, I grew up as a very just calm and relaxed person. A share story, just personal story. So my brother unfortunately died of cancer when he was very young at 18.
Sorry.
And yeah, but what I saw personally is that he didn't get to live the life he wanted, right? Very young, energetic. He didn't even get to graduate high school. So what I saw is it can happen anytime to anybody. So I kind of live my day as like, it's going to be the best day that I can make it. Try to make it as stress free as possible because you just never know, right? So that's how I live my day. That's how I try to encourage my teams to like live their day. Hey, live your life to the fullest, deliver what you can, work hard, play hard, and then find that balance, which is usually how I come across. So usually I appear to be not super stressed, although I do get stressed. I just try not to
Yeah.
show early, right? And just live my life to the best that I can. I know I've worked as hard as I can. I know I've given it my 120% and then deliver what I can, right? And if it's not enough, it's not enough. I can't do any more, but I tried.
I'm really sorry to hear that. Life is precious, and I think that's one takeaway from how we can be better humans, right? Because we're building relationships, and I
Yeah.
think oftentimes we treat those around us, and mostly the people that are closest to us, with harm, and we talk down to them and we raise our voice, whereas someone externally that we don't even know, we're kind to. So I think it's just a reminder to not stress as much, relax, and everything will become either easier or if there will be a resolve from it.
Everything solves itself. Everything solves
Yeah.
itself. That's what I always say. With or without me here, as in like if I'm not in the company for a week because I'm on spring break, hey,
Yeah.
things go on, right?
Yeah.
Everything always has a resolution, is what I always say.
Do you have like a meditation practice or a prayer or a North Star that you lean on?
Not necessarily. My parents are, I think my parents are always praying for me. They're very religious, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that helps. Um, I do try and just spend some downtime on a nightly basis and just kind of relax, not meditate, but just relax, try to get things out of my head, clear my head for the day,
Hmm.
restart. Lately, I've been on a little bit of a health kick, which I probably needed to do sooner, but it has also helped me,
Yeah.
like push out some of that stress at the gym, which I
Yeah.
appreciate, and I'm looking forward to more gym sessions. But I don't really have like a direct system other than I know people keep me in their prayers for a variety of reasons. I do say my own prayers, but that's probably the best answer for that one.
My wife is Brazilian, and her mom, my mother-in-law, my sogra, she has the strongest prayers. It's probably the same thing. She's always praying for me, and I'm like, okay, I think that's why I was healed.
Yeah, my mom does the same thing. We've been to Cristo in Brazil with my
Okay.
parents. that was a good experience. Like I said, anything that's religious based, I'm sure I've done with my parents at some point.
That's awesome. Yeah, that the Latin in whether it's Catholic or Christian is a very strong with prayer and being close and bringing God into getting overcoming certain situations.
Definitely, definitely.
So you work with teams, they're often dealing with constant alerts, threats, and noise. How do you show up for those people when they're under pressure and they need clarity?
You're talking about our customers, I assume, right? Or just our
It could
internal.
it could be both your internal team or your customers, and just how you show up for people in general.
Yeah, internally, it's a challenge these days because we are very remote globally, and the way we have to show up to them is via collaborative stuff like Slack, right?
Yep.
Uh, as much team meetings as we can and huddles and such, right? And even though that we're pushing and challenging them to do hard things, right? Also encouraging them. We have a monthly service award for someone that we feel has gone above and beyond, right? Giving them the pats on the back. Try to really encourage them and show our support from a leadership team that, hey, customer said ABC thanks to our product, right? Thank you for doing that because you impacted, something super important that you're not even thinking about it, but that company services so many consumers. If that incident became bigger, they may not have been able to operate, which impacts the consumer. So we try to do things like that, right?
So really
And
just trying to reward them.
as much as we can. On the flip side, we support customers with, as I mentioned, critical infrastructure and mission things. I was actually on a call earlier today where a company had 60 people on a bridge line and they were dealing with an incident, and our tool was like the most important thing in order to go find what they're looking for. And those are the types of things that our solution provides. The incident response, the first place that they need to be operating of in order to identify what happened here and how do we prevent it from happening again.
You said they had 60 people on a bridge line. What does that mean?
It's like a Zoom, right? So you get legal, you get your IT folks, you get leadership, you get people that communications, like trying to figure out what happened, how it happened, has it been identified, have we stopped it, things like that. So just a phone call, a
Video call.
video call. Yes,
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Well, this was great. I want to ask you three rapid fire questions and we'll wrap up.
go for it.
First one, what is one metric you check every single week without fail?
Probably our sales numbers. It has to be.
Yeah,
How many like proof of concepts that we have, where are we at on a quarterly basis? Are we going to be able to hit our metrics? Again, at a startup, that's how we're all measured. That's what's going to lead to our success and future fundraising and such.
for sure. And what is one book or podcast that you'd recommend to other leaders?
There are several podcasts. To be honest, I'm not going to recommend any more business ones because every podcast I hear, they are recommend the business. I actually recommend sometimes just some off-topic ones. So I still listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. I actually
Yeah.
listen to Howard Stern still, just for the
Okay.
humor side of things, just to
Yeah.
mix things up, right? I watch a lot of YouTube still, and just to educate myself, I treat those as podcasts too. And I watch the most random things. Like literally last night, I was watching a little bit of a documentary on how the zipper started and how it was made. So I keep myself entertained in the non-business thing. I think I live and breathe it so much, and I can only read so many books that are going to tell me similar things or new ways to do similar things. I'd
Hmm.
rather find off-topic things just to get my mind curious and like learning other things, especially with my two young kids that I want to be talking in their language and what they're in tune on a day-to-day basis with.
I love hearing that. We have most of the time business books and podcasts, and there was one podcast that we had where he loves football, European football, which is soccer in our world, and he talked about this one football podcast that was like, very left field, not what I was expecting, but I love hearing those. Fill in the blank for me. A leader under pressure should always.
A leader under pressure should always be calm. Again, back to the way I operate, right? I've been in and around, I've worked for leaders that when they're under pressure and they show it or they act upon that pressure and they, give the vibes of the pressure because they want others to feel the pressure, it can be chaotic, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
So even though I'm feeling pressure, and yes, it may not be the healthiest to maintain it or keep it inside, I will I will communicate the pressures to several of my key deputies. Hey, this is the pressure on. This is what we have to do. Like we need to get the team in and around us to support us because we need to deliver on X. So I like to say, even though I'm in a tremendous amount of pressure, I may be under pressure right now. You don't even know, right? I really prefer to be calm and operate in a uh, relaxed manner because I think it's going to lead to the best outcomes. If we rush things, if we put others under pressure, that's when chaos, mistakes, and other just disorganization happens.
That's great. Being calm in the face of danger. And if you look at it from a, economic perspective, someone gets on the TV, whether it's the president or some big political person, and shows pressure on their face and not calm, we all freak out. It's the same thing in business with employees.
Yeah.
So they lean on you and they look to you to be the strength of the company.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if we're the leaders of the company and we're not, you know, what we show to the company is how they're going to react, right? So I'd rather try to be as calm as possible under pressure.
That's great. Chris, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing the stories and being vulnerable. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Eric. I enjoyed being on here. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Until next time.
Till next time.
And that's a wrap on another episode of Growth Under Pressure. I'm your host, Eric Josovitz, and I hope today's conversation gave you practical insights you can apply to your own growth journey. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with another founder, operator, or leader who'd find it valuable. We publish new episodes every other Thursday featuring conversations with people that are building, scaling, and leading under pressure. And let me know in the comments what stood out most from today's episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep pushing, keep growing, and I'll see you on the next episode of Growth Under Pressure.